But good afternoon. Hopefully you can see us. We're coming through clear wherever you are. My name is John Delmas. I'm the Executive Director of the Michigan Chemistry Council, and today is our annual membership meeting and a virtual town hall. We're excited to be with everybody today to do one of the important functions of the association with the business meeting, and also to get into some other updates that would be valuable for MCC members, and also to get your feedback, hopefully to use this technology in such a way to somewhat replace what we would normally be able to do in person. That's the part that I really miss, is being able to talk with everybody, and likewise for you to share with each other. And hopefully we can be back to something like that again soon. But as you know, we're adjusting the best we can. I am joined, of course, by my boss, Mark Kramer, who is President and CEO of Anderson Development Company and the President of our Michigan Chemistry Council Board of Directors. We're both going to be sharing in today's presentation, and both, of course, are available to talk through the meeting and answer questions, as well as beyond. The first thing,
good afternoon, everyone.
Hey, thanks, Mark. The first thing we need to get out of the way is just an antitrust statement. I suppose there is a chat function, and people could be price fixing and other things. We don't want to do any of that, certainly. And you can see here, it is our policy to comply in all respects with the spirit and the letter of antitrust law. We are not going to get into any discussions around markets, prices, production, things of that nature. We are here to work on a pre-competitive basis on areas where we can make our industry better as a whole. If there's anything that we feel like violates that, we will, of course, take immediate action, and we encourage you to bring it to our immediate attention. Today's program, we are going to have introductions and recognitions to start off with. We are going to have, I'll be providing a short update on the situation that we've been working on from the COVID perspective, the political perspective, do a brief economic review with some data that our friends at American Chemistry Council shared with us, and just the current situation out there with the business climate. We do want to get member feedback, as mentioned, and so we have some questions to help us better understand your operating environment. And again, hopefully we'll continue getting that kind of information and feedback going forward. Then Mark is going to give a short update as board president on some areas of focus for the association. We'll finish up then with a very brief annual membership meeting. We'll move to a formal Robert's Rules type situation to get through those business items. We sent out earlier today an email that did have the materials, and we will be showing that on the screen, and we'll be asking for you as the participants and MCC members to act and to signify approval of those items using the chat function. And then finally, we'll just preview some of our upcoming events that are coming up in the next few months. So with that, as stated, again, as your executive director, thank you all for your time this afternoon. Mark as well, I want to thank him, of course, for his time and attention and service to the MCC. It's not a highly compensated position in the slightest, and it does involve a lot of thankless work in making sure we're on the right track, helping us navigate through mundane things as well as a little more exciting things. And Mark has done it very well since he became president last year. I'm very grateful for his leadership. I did want to just recognize other MCC members that are participating. I'm going to do sort of a brief roll call just by going down the participant list as best as I can, recognizing we may not be able to do that perfectly, but I'm just going to shout out to some of our companies that are represented. Already mentioned as Anderson Development Company, also DuPont, Haviland Enterprises, Hemlock Semiconductor, BASF, Barnes & Thornburg, American Chemistry Council, I believe SK Saran, Amway, Corteva, Fishbeck, Wacker, Pfizer, Werner Norcross and Judd, AECOM, Trinzio, Three Rivers Corporation, and as already mentioned, a few duplicates. So sorry if we may not got to everybody, best as we can, judging who's in the room here. Thank you for being with us today. I would be very remiss if I did not just give a recognition to all the MCC members during COVID-19. Obviously, it's been a challenge for everybody to continue operating in this environment, but our industry, I'm so proud to work with companies that have stepped up and have managed not only to continue production of the things that we depend on in everyday life that just make life essential and healthy, but producing new things, donating your PPE, producing PPE or producing hand sanitizer. I think the chemical industry in Michigan has single-handedly kept our state, along with the distilleries, supplied with a lot of supplies of hand sanitizer, which now I think we've met that challenge in a significant way, using our expertise to meet these needs. I wanted to, of course, thank MCC board members for their service, ones that have been with us the last year. I know it hasn't been always easy. We have not been able to meet together and work together in the way that we would like, but I appreciate all your time and participation. And as we go forward with some new members of our board, thank you in advance for the time that you will give. I also wanted to recognize our partners at the American Chemistry Council. We continue to enjoy a great working relationship with them. And a lot of what we do is made possible by them, including a lot of the information, things like the economic updates, and allowing us to be your hands and feet and your eyes and ears and voice here in Michigan too is a great privilege. So thank you for that support. And finally, I want to recognize Engage Management. Some of you may know that this year, we'll talk about it a little bit later, we started to work with a contracted association management company. They've been providing a lot of services to us, have allowed us to continue operating efficiently and step up our game in many areas. And they're behind the scenes doing a lot of things. If you may notice, some of the individuals we are working with, they'll be working with you on events and sponsorships and programs and membership and everything else. But Engage is the company, and we're very grateful to be partnering with them. So now is the chance for us to try technology, which we hope is easy enough. I just want to find out from what city everyone is joining us today. And there are two ways. We'll be using this later for other questions that are a little more qualitative for our discussion, but we want to know which city you are joining us from today. You can text, unfortunately, my name is the keyword there to 22333, or use a web browser to enter your responses. And this will allow you, once you enter those things, to submit your responses. So this is called Poll Everywhere. Once you send it in, you'll then be paired with our poll, and you can give your response. Great. We'll leave this open for a little bit as everybody figures it out. I think they have internet up in Midland, so at some point expecting that too. There we go. Probably not a surprising word cloud if we were to actually get the full response of where people that may be the most numerous. Okay, well, thank you. From wherever you're joining us from. My brief executive director's update is first starting with COVID-19 and impacts to our industry. I think we learned a new term, which was essential critical infrastructure. That is enumerated by the Federal Department of Homeland Security and referenced by governors all around the country, including our own. It was widely understood, of course, that the chemical industry is essential, but it was great to see that validated. And of course, having our supply chain broadly defined throughout the chemical industry included as essential critical infrastructure allowed us to continue to operate even during the days when everything else was technically shut down, stay at home. And of course, your companies produce so many things, and almost every last plant in Michigan continue to operate with a few exceptions. Obviously, COVID has had a business and economic impact. Just the things that are in high demand, healthcare, the things that are in low demand, transportation fuels, anything aviation related, a lot of products that are used in public settings or things that are no longer being used, that stuff or was not able to be produced at manufacturing plants. That stuff has seen a great downturn in terms of the demand, and we'll see some slides on that later. Obviously, automotive, when those plants in that supply chain throughout Michigan was freezed for some time because of the safety concerns, that led to some significant impacts throughout the rest of our industry. Compliance with numerous orders and guidance. Something we've all had to learn is government by executive order. And I would, of course, want to remind everybody, we've said it for a long time, but state government can have a very significant impact on your operations as a company. Even if some of those things we take for granted, those authorities that were exercised during COVID had a significant impact on the way we do business. I just checked as of this afternoon, 181 executive orders, in case you were wondering, in a little bit over 6 months. Sometimes the orders were changed after 2 or 3 days, modifying an order that was previously in place. And that hasn't been easy for anybody, but I think we've gotten to a place where we've been able to operate. Besides the governor's orders, of course, there's federal, CDC, OSHA, other things that everyone else is taking the right steps to make a workplace as safe and healthy. And just the new normal of workforce issues. The one thing I've been hearing from so many people in the last few weeks is that, frankly, whether your kids' schools are open is probably the single biggest impact upon your operations in your area. And all the workforce, broadly defined at your company, that's a big deal. If you have to stay home with your kids, that affects your ability to work and it affects your ability to operate as a cohesive workforce. Something that in the long term we'll see how much that returns to normal. So the MCC's response immediately to COVID was knowing that the governor was going to be issuing a stay-at-home order, seeing this in other states within a period of about 3 or 4 days that they were doing this. We had sent some information to the governor's office. We sent a letter advocating very clearly that the chemical industry be defined as critical infrastructure or essential even before DHS issued its guidance. Then just interpreting the orders, answering some frequently asked questions, helping to people sort through the noise and the confusion in the first few days was something we spent time on as well as many others. We've gone even more virtual with a lot of the ways we've done things. The MCC actually no longer has an office in Lansing. One ways we've reacted, tried to be most efficient with our resources. I've been working mostly from home, interacting with others virtually and going to Lansing only when necessary. Our advocacy has been the same way. We've had policy roundtables with Senators Stabenow and Peters, with a couple members of Congress. Our members have participated in those, along with the ACC, and it's been a way we've been able to advocate directly and talk about what our companies are going through. And the programming, we've had a series of webinars, and we will continue with more of those. This annual meeting and town hall is part of that too. Just making it easily accessible for people to participate and hopefully continuing some of the value and informative resources that you come to expect from us. But of course, COVID has interrupted some longer term initiatives. We can't meet together regionally. We can't bring legislators into your plants safely. We can't do outreach in person at different events, or I'm sure you guys are not having school kids come through your facility. All those things have been interrupted. Even just our planning as a board and as committees has been certainly impacted by the ability not to be able to be together. I want to just give some brief slides again from the American Chemistry Council on economic survey that they did. I believe it was April and May this year, and recently they kind of compiled and shared some of this data throughout the industry. The top challenges for chemical manufacturers as of 2020 benchmarked to the last several years. Obviously, the top issue right now is just weaker global growth, the U.S. economy and sales, all those things, the broader economic downturn never spares the chemical industry, and that's certainly the case. There's other issues just with health and insurance costs that are probably more pronounced right now. Some other areas are a little bit less maybe sort of than useful than previous. As far as raw material costs, commodity prices and a lot of things are a little bit lower right now, as opposed to the last couple of years where that was more of a prominent issue. Obviously in Michigan, a lot of our companies in the material science space are involved in the automotive supply chain, and you know, a sector that was doing really well the last couple of years had really had solid sales. I think a lot of analysts were saying that the industry was expecting a slowdown or facing that just based on the consumer demand out there, and certainly the ability to sell vehicles during COVID and consumers' interest and ability to buy that was hit. But still, there could have been worse. I think it's interesting that even in April and May, when everything was shut down, there was still a lot of cars being sold. Someone still has to explain that all to me, how that happened, but vehicles were still moving, and now vehicles being produced ultimately and into the hands of customers is what drives a lot of our industry. They do expect it'll be another couple of years before demand returns to what it was in the last few years. So I think August, the annualized rate was 15 million. We were at, I think, about 17 million before that. American Chemistry Council, going back to their data, they say that the biggest impact again on decreased demand for products and just other sales, that's broadly shared. But other companies again have had increased demand for other products, food packaging, cleaners, disinfectants, healthcare related products. And so it's been very much different depending on the business, depending on the plant. And I think some companies have been able to shift to accommodate those demand changes, whether it was increases or decreases. This just, again, the percentage, but broadly speaking, the industry has been negatively impacted more so than positively. Actions that companies have taken, workforce adjustments in many cases, furloughs at times. I think we've been able to avoid, you know, broader layoffs unlike other manufacturing, but certainly some reductions in some areas. Capital expenditures were paused. I know some in Michigan, thankfully, are still moving forward. Companies have long-term growth plans that they are not abandoning just because of COVID or because of the economic uncertainty now, but certainly you take a little while to evaluate those sort of things. And down the line, you can see where the production actions happen with different companies. 60% though with delayed or canceled investments. Not great. We were at a really high point in the industry, and again, we track with the broader economy. And finally, workforce adjustments here. 76% note that they have made workforce adjustments, and the majority of that was decreased either temporarily or long-term hours worked, the workforce, temporary headcount reductions, but on some hand, there's been others that have increased, hired more employees, increased hours worked to make up for that increased demands. And 15% of companies have done both at the same time, different areas. This last one is a little bit more broadly related than just COVID, but I think it's interesting from the ACC talking about 2019, the types of capital spending that companies were involved in there. And in Michigan, of course, as in any other state, our lifeblood is capital spending to continue investment in Michigan. We don't see a lot of new plants, of course, being built from the ground up, but reinvestment in those plants, maintenance of those plants, and expansion where possible is the thing we're always glad to see. So I just wanted to open up another poll slide here. I think you can choose more than one option, but if you're already texted in or on this website, you just have to do A, B, C, or D to let us know what the impacts have been to your organization. So I'll again leave this open here for a little while people take a look at the slide and hopefully share what some of their perspective has been. Should have had a raffle prize for participation. Okay, I'm going to go on to the next slide soon, but if you text in, it'll still be collecting your data, still be active. It may just be, not sure if you're able to enter more than one answer. These may be the top answers from people, so. All right, yeah, your top answers. This would be an interesting one. If people are willing to share honestly, you can answer anonymously. This, true or false, your company has struggled to interpret and or apply one or more of the governor's executive orders. A, if true, B, if false. Looks like definitely more. They're saying yes, at some point, some of these orders have been challenged to interpret or apply, more so than not. Okay, this one I believe is our final polling question now, and this one is a really important one for us. I'll be very honest. It's just one issue that you foresee as a challenge for your company in the next year. And a few words, this is not just limited to one word, but a few words, short answer in terms of something that you will be dealing with, helps us to get a better picture of things that we ought to be focused on and thinking about. Shifting political landscape. Okay. Certainly a variety of issues here. Awesome. I think I know who some of these are, but good. A lot of uncertainty, it seems like some out here. What's the demand going to be? What's the macroeconomic environment? How fast are we going to recover? Morale. Okay. All right, I'm going to move on and appreciate all of this. You, of course, can keep texting that in or respond at the URL that's listed up there. A very uncertain time. I think that's clear for everybody. So my update as far as just the political situation, if you've been on our government affairs calls or if you're paying attention to things in Lansing, this is probably a review. But the single biggest issue the state has had to deal with, just outside of the COVID orders, which have been done through the governor's office, unilaterally for the most part, has been the budget hole. The biggest responsibility of state government is just to spend money on different areas. And we had at one point over a $3 billion hole in the current budget year that was caused by businesses shutting down, people not paying taxes, people deferring taxes. All that activity left a large hole, which again could have been a lot worse with the Federal CARES Act and with movement of some federal money to shift and fill state funds. They were actually able to balance the current year budget that we're in right now. The state budget year goes until October 1st. And that was done in July, I believe. And without a whole lot of cuts, they've done some pauses, but really no major mass layoffs of state employees. There have been some furloughs at agencies like Eagle, which some of you may be aware of. But for the next year and even for the year after that, there is expected to be continued depressed revenues and just a deficit you may know the state government cannot just print money, cannot borrow money like the federal government can. For better or for worse, we have to balance our budget every year. And the actions are actually being taken as we speak to get that budget ready for the next year, which begins on October 1st. And that impacts our members to some extent. The fees and different programs that our companies participate in through state government, but we don't get appropriations. We don't get funding from the government for most operations that directly impact us. On a policy side, we have been involved with some legislation to improve Michigan's recycling situation. This has been years in the making, and we think there's an opportunity to do it in a bipartisan fashion this year. We're very glad to be supportive of this legislation and have been working on making tweaks that meet our priorities. We want to see Michigan have more access statewide for people to recycle different materials, to be able to improve the quality and quantity of recycled content so that manufacturers and others can use these in their products, and also be able to locate new facilities here, potentially with advanced recycling technologies. Some of your companies you may be familiar with this, or companies may be involved in it. It allows plastics to be broken down and returned in a circular economy to their original use. And it has great opportunity, but just on the cusp of it, and we would love to see some of this happening in Michigan. The story of the last probably 2 or 3 years has been PFAS, more of a defensive issue. We've been responding to the concern and the actions taken by state government. There were rules that were recently finalized for PFAS in drinking water, making Michigan among the states the lowest in the country in terms of state levels for PFAS. Now, obviously, besides just drinking water, there's surface water standards, there's cleanup standards, there's air emissions, there's other soil and biosolids levels. All that is being worked on as we speak continuously, and Michigan has not let up much in this area. We've been certainly advocating for a science-based response to this, and on an issue that is definitely challenging in many ways. And finally, the political outlook for just what we're dealing with. We've had Governor Whitmer as our governor in the last 2 years, just finishing halfway up through her first term. Certainly, it's been a challenge to administer any state, and she's done so throughout all the controversy, whatever your opinion of her. Gotten a lot of national attention and a lot of attention just for the action she's taken as governor, showing what the power of the office can do. She can direct her state agencies in many ways too, and so we've seen that at Eagle and other departments. But she has had a Republican majority in both houses of the legislature for her first 2 years. Now, this November, the state house is up for election, all 110 seats. These representatives are all reelected, and because of term limits, there's a significant number of seats that are open every year. And the Democrats are looking to flip about 4 seats would be needed to take the majority, and that Oakland County, Kalamazoo area, there's a few other areas in Grand Traverse County where there's seats that are competitive to determine who will have a state house, and that will have a big impact on what legislation gets taken up next year. If you're the majority and a bill gets introduced that you don't like, it never even gets a hearing. And that's the single biggest thing that is different. Whether or not the bills make it all the way through and get signed by the governor, the majority gets to decide what is on the agenda. Michigan Senate, on the other hand, is still controlled by Republicans. They're not up this year, so for the next 2 years, it will continue to be a Republican Senate. But we have had Republican control of both chambers in Michigan since 2010, and during many of those years, it was a very large majority. So in many ways, the policies that we're involved in, that made things easier. Now, certainly there are issues we work with both parties on, and areas that we might see more opportunity under Democratic governor or Democratic House, but I would be lying if I said there won't be more challenges next year. And I think it's even or better than even shot that those Democrats do win the seats they need in the state house. As far as president and Congress, I checked the recent polling. President Trump is up by an average of 4.6 points in the Real Clear Politics poll in Michigan. I think that's down from what it had been earlier, but that's larger than many of the other swing states. We know that Trump narrowly won, of course, in 2016. So Michigan is considered a battleground. I think a lot of analysts right now are predicting it's highly likely that Joe Biden will win, but if we learned anything in 2016 is that we can all be surprised. But I would expect that if we have a President Biden in 2021, it's also possible that the Democrats would take the U.S. Senate, and then you would have unified Democratic control in Washington, and a lot of attention potentially on what actions they will take. I'll get into a few of those, but that will dominate, I think, the political and kind of governmental area next year will be whatever happens in Washington, especially if they take control and have the agenda. So on the specific energy environmental policy issues, water has been the issue for the last 5 years, going back to Flint. Discussions over lead in the water, Line 5 in the Great Lakes, PFAS has all come back to the same area of drinking water. These are very different issues if you understand them, but it has been the motivating factor for the governor and for many others has been water quality. And obviously as an industry, it's something that we pay a lot of attention to. On the energy space and just dealing with climate change, especially at the federal level, I expect that discussions around the Green New Deal, many different conceptions of what that is and exactly what policies are involved, but that is going to dominate the policy, I'd imagine, in Washington, probably more so than the water issue, although water will also be a high priority, but expect that climate as a nationwide issue is going to be greater for them. In Michigan, we do expect that Governor Whitmer will continue to focus on this issue. And in fact, some announcements we think in the next couple of days and weeks on a goal for our state to decarbonize. And that offers opportunities, of course. Chemistry is essential for renewable energy. It's essential for energy efficiency, all of the products that we make that go into these markets. So there are challenges, but also opportunities. And we want to have a seat at the table to make sure we're advocating for our products to be able to meet those needs and policies that allow us to be successful and help meet these, provide these solutions. The last issue that kind of relates to a lot of this is environmental justice, and has gotten, again, attention in Michigan and otherwise. Flint really drove this to the forefront, and that's only continued. Obviously, the focus on racial equity over this summer has been involved in how that relates to environmental issues. So again, can be a challenge depending on your particular situation as a company, but we know that the governor has focused on this as a policy area. Other states like New Jersey have passed pretty sweeping legislation that would really change the way that environmental permitting is done to put environmental justice as a key consideration in that, instead of just a point to be discussed. And we expect that this is going to continue in Michigan. And finally, the pace of changes just has increased dramatically. So while we're working on all these issues, we know that in a couple of years it can shift dramatically. PFAS came out of nowhere, and within 6 months it felt like it was everywhere in terms of dominating the attention, and the state's response. We can no longer sit back and wait for things to unplay over play out over a period of years. It's now something weeks, months at a time where we need to be able to respond and be part of the conversation. And frankly, as an industry, we are evolving probably faster than we ever have. So I believe that's the end of my update here, and I want to turn it over to Mark for a brief update from the board president on issues that he sees as front and center. So Mark?
Thank you, John. Appreciate the update, and thank you to all the members and the people who are joining us for the meeting today. Hey, John, can you, here we go. Yeah, I think when you look at where we've been over the last couple of years, we've really come quite a ways, especially in terms of member development. And a lot of this member development, I think quite a few people on the call have actually lived this firsthand, is we've grown, and a lot of this is as the members have shifted, really with the merger and demerger of Dow and the changing coming together and then splitting back it apart. And really it's been a challenge for us, but you can see as we've been able to continue to grow both members and keep our dues revenues fairly stable over that period of time. And it's not been without a lot of effort, but I do think this is a situation where we're stronger together. And it is, as the environment has changed, or the political environment is changing on us all the time, we need to work together to really help to create and improve and support the ecosystem for chemical companies in Michigan, because I think we make a difference, and we really provide a lot to Michigan. So we need to make sure their voices are heard as we go. You can go ahead, click through, John. With all this, one of the challenges has really been is prioritizing member and organizational resources. We've done quite a few different things here, and as we've grown in members, but at the same time with the shifting with Dow. But really, we've done a lot of work partnering with ACC with some of the contracted lobbying services, and we really appreciate that relationship with them. And we have a common agenda. We've got the same mission, the same desires. I think that's really gone pretty well, and really appreciate what, the folks at ACC and really being able to work with them like that, because I think it's making a difference in what we do and how we do it. It's making us a lot more efficient. Part of that, we also moved to a virtual office and really took some of the cost out of the structure so that we can really focus our efforts more on the things that make a difference. And with that, we also transitioned to contracted association management services with Engage, and like to thank the work that they're doing. With the pandemic, we haven't been able to do everything we wanted to do, or we got a lot of pieces of this work that's still in progress. But things like administrative functions and like the annual conference, we're having to do that a little differently this year. And unfortunately, we all get to learn a few new tricks this year with the pandemic. You've probably seen some of the communication services have shifted a little bit. The addition of the webinars, the digital content, communications plan, and we're really adapting and changing. And been on a couple of webinars myself, and I think they've worked out really well. And it's a neat forum for us to engage people and to provide more value as an organization, and really encourage everyone to get involved with that and help us grow with those. And really, the other piece is since Engage is working with other organizations, being able to give us strategic guidance and membership value and help us provide a lot more resources. We're not a huge organization, so we don't have all the bells and whistles, and we don't have a staff of 30. We need to focus that. If we want to focus on advocacy, we've got to make sure we do it well and we do it efficiently. And we've taken those steps, and things seem to be going in the right direction. Really like how that's all been going. I think with all that said, I think we've got a number of different challenges for the future. When you look at the advocacy during a shifting political environment, both state and national, we've seen a shifting environment in Michigan just over the last couple of years. And we've seen, especially with respect to the pandemic, about how fast things can move, and the potential that things could start shifting more on a national level. We're only a couple months from an election right now, and odds are that will create some changes. We do see there's definitely an increase in populism. Issues like trade, which really weren't that hard issues before, have turned into harder issues. We see with some of the environmental legislation, like John had mentioned, some of the things that the more increased focus in both state and national level on equity and how things are done. Those are going to create new challenges for us, and we're going to need to adapt to them, and we're going to need to reach really both sides of the aisle, because we know these will be shifting back and forth, and we are becoming more polarized, both as a state and a country. So we have to work with everyone if we're going to really get the job done. The sustainability challenge, I think this is something that's really evolved, and I think all of our companies have evolved with it over the last couple of years. Especially, it's really accelerating. And I think our challenge as an organization is, how do we articulate that? And how do we articulate that in a manner that is inclusive of our members and really recognizes all the work that's being done? Because I think there's a lot of fantastic work that's being done by the members already today. And a lot of the things we're going to do as we really go forward even more into the future. And I think as an organization, we've got to get better at articulating that and being able to explain to people what we do and why we're doing what we're doing. Because I think that that's going to really feed into the advocacy that is going to be more important if we're going to be an effective advocate, for us to be able to explain and to people about why what we're doing for sustainability makes a difference. Those two are going to really go hand in hand, and it really will allow us to be a more effective advocates. Diversity, equity, inclusion in the industry. How do we continue to improve it? I think a lot of member companies are doing a great job already. It's another area where the more we can continue to improve this, I think this will be it's going to be an important topic for us in the future. I think the events over the last really 6 months with respect to diversity and equity, it really elevated that into more onto the headlines. And so it's going to be even more important for us to both improve it and be able to explain what we're doing and how we're doing it and why it's important to us. Let's face it, the people it's one of our most important raw materials, and we need to improve that pipeline and keep building that pipeline. So we have the people to be able to grow with us in the future. And lastly, really continued member development and involvement. As you can see from the previous slide, we've grown our members, the number of members and the number of voices. And we really want to continue that. It's important. I think we have so many companies in the business of chemistry who we're not really engaged with, or getting them more engaged so that we can help people see really what we do provide to the state, to the country. The more we can get them engaged, the better. It's our strength is in numbers. Our strength is in our diversity and being able to show people just what we can do. So with all, I think we've come a long way. I think we still have a little ways to go. We've got some more work as we continue to move on into the future. So to do this, I think it's really going to be engaging member companies, subject matter experts. We've got a fairly small organization in terms of staffing. So John's I think he throws on a Superman cape, on a daily basis and flies into when issues come up, and engaging in things like with the COVID-19 response and how do we adapt to some of this and how do we help each other. He's done a great job doing that, but I think we're going to need help him even more as we go forward in the future. Is we have more challenges and we've got a limited staff, and as we continue to grow and get bigger, we're going to have more challenges to go into. So we're going to need to ask the member companies to help continue to participate. I've long believed with organizations, you get into it, you get out of an organization what you put into it. And I guess with all this said, do you think we're missing anything at this point? Am I missing anything? And encourage everyone to add comments to the chat. We want to be a member-driven organization. So if we're missing something, there's something we need to get on the radar that's not, please put it in the chat, or let's get it out there that we can talk about it and make sure it's included.
All right. Well, thank you, Mark. I obviously appreciate your remarks. I'm inspired by them. Inspired by your leadership and how you help us think things through as an association, and me personally, and encourage you as members to continue to provide that feedback. And I hope to follow up with you, directly with continuous conversations. But as a group, and especially with the leadership of our board, we're looking forward to making things stronger and even better on behalf of the industry. So now I want to show us the annual membership meeting here, and I may actually switch my screen share to bring up the materials for the annual meeting.
Sounds good. Thank you, John. We'll call the meeting to order. I think first thing on the agenda is approval of minutes from our previous annual meeting. I don't know if you can switch that easily, or.
Is it being shared?
Not yet.
Okay, let me try that one more time. All right. Is it up now?
There we go. Yes, it is. Give everyone a chance to look. John, were these sent out in advance also?
Should have received them by email this morning.
Okay. So it sounds like we did miss someone, but we'll get those out to Priya.
Okay.
I guess do we need to have any discussion or any comments or questions about it? I guess probably easiest way for people to do that is to raise your hand.
Or the
Down on the,
that
and then we
function,
can,
yep. Charlie has moved approval of minutes from last year, and there's a support from Greg. So
sounds good. All in favor?
you would type aye or yes. Okay. Getting a lot of yeses.
Okay, moving on. I think the next thing we need to do is to review the financials, which I believe is up on everyone's screen here. Hey, John, are there any big things we need to talk about in here, or?
Now, I wanted to let everybody know that, as usual, we have had an independent accountant's review. This was done by Yo and Yo and was completed in the first and second quarter of the year. Been provided to the board. The board and executive committee has direct oversight of the financials and preparation of the IRS nonprofit tax return. The financials from last year show a decline in dues, but also a decline in expenses, and we made commensurate adjustments to the budget. There was a budget surplus on paper of approximately, or budget deficit on paper of approximately $10,000 in terms of net assets. Again, reiterating that we are stable and growing in some ways, but yet have very, very modest financial reserves. And this year, I think we've done very well with the support of our members, been able to make it through COVID without any cash flow issues. But continue to rely on membership dues as the predominant source of revenue for our activities.
Thank you, John. Any questions or any discussion necessary?
Nope, there's no discussion, no approval necessary. This is provided as a review for all the members.
Okay, I think the last item on the agenda is the election of the board members to MCC, and we're happy to welcome Dr. Priya Tabador, and I'm totally sorry if I blow any of these names. From Bacher Stokone, she's the director of the industrial silicones business. Ben Gaith from Enterprise, the VP of Enterprise Services from Haviland.
Yep, we Ben and Priya are new members of the board, and we also have a slate here that includes a number of other members to be re-elected. We have regular members and associate members with now 9 from each term, 9 of them who are re-elected this year, and 9 whose term is up next year.
Okay, I guess, can I get a motion to approve the slate of directors?
Okay, there's a motion to approve the slate of new directors.
And can we get a second? We have a second. Okay, thank you. I guess all in favor to approve the slate of directors?
Thank you very much for everyone who's participating, especially the very steadfast MCC board members. Okay.
Well, thank you, everyone, and thank you, especially the board members and coming onto the board. We appreciate your service, both now and as we go forward. It's try to put the heavy lifting on John, but the more we can do to help him, and the more we can do to help move our organization in the right direction, it helps us all. I think that's with all said. I think I at least open it up. If anyone has any new business that we need to get into, open it up. You can put it in the chat. A minute if anyone would like to add anything. Okay, I'm not seeing anything, so I guess I'd move to adjourn the meeting, and thank you, John, for pulling us all this together.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. Thanks for participation. And with that, that concludes our annual membership meeting. And still with a few items yet, I want to highlight for everyone's awareness. The MCC Board of Directors, again, now at a robust level with folks' representation on it. The board will be meeting in the next 2 weeks. We hope to get together to review our strategic plan and our programs and to provide some direction and feedback to us. It's very important that we're taking stock of what the company's needs are and where as an association we can be helping to better meet those needs. I will also note for anyone's participation, we have an MCC Communications Committee. We'll be meeting next Monday. I'm very excited about that. The area of communications has been something that we have really focused on the last few years, but yet have a lot of opportunity as an industry. I think we can always do a better job of communicating what our companies are doing, and as an industry, what we are doing in the communities and in our businesses, and also on those important public policy issues. So I encourage you to look for that. I encourage your colleagues that may be a communications professional to participate. We hope to then have an education committee. These are kind of reboots. They have been active at different times in the past, but hope to have them active going forward on a quarterly basis every few months or so. But obviously it's all dependent on participation and timing and just what the focus is at the moment. And then lastly, we are working on to hope we'll be able to announce soon other fall webinars once we get into October, November, December. Some more policy roundtables with the issues of the day, what's going on in the legislature, and what they're going to focus on for the rest of the year. I'm also working on a conversation with environmental NGOs. No surprise that these groups are very active as well as influential. They have a robust presence around the Capitol with their own lobbyists, supported by obviously a lot of engaged members and a lot of donors that have given them resources to be active in the same spheres that we work in, and they have a great line of communication with the governor's office. So what are the environmental NGOs' perspectives on important issues that we care about? Where can we work with them? How can we just better understand the perspective and influence that they bring? After the election, I think it'll be certain we'll do a recap and a 2021 policy outlook, both at the state and federal level, to share with what we think will be coming down once the results are in. And then finally, one area we've gotten some suggestion on, and I hope to bring this to fruition, is recruiting roundtables, so to speak. So working with our industry members, what does that look like at the university level, especially this year with COVID-19? How can the chemical industry understand what's happening with our pipeline of talent? And specifically with veterans also as an area of talent that we can focus on, that we can appeal to, and that we can benefit from as an industry. So these are not confirmed yet, but hope to be soon, and would love your participation and support of these if they're of interest to you, among others. We have a few other things we're working on, a few other surprises maybe to announce that will be of interest. So keep those in mind. These have all been complimentary for participation and made possible by the support of our donors and our sponsors. So with that, I would just say let's connect. My information's up there. email. We do have an office phone that still rings and a cell phone that I can be reached at. And then, of course, our website and our social media channels predominantly. Use those to follow what we're doing. Keep in touch. And at some point, I'd love to be able to visit again with you in person, if it's your site or somewhere else. Let's do that safely. And Mark, is there any other encouragement or words of wisdom?
No, I just say I'd like to thank you, John, and also thank Kristen Taylor from Engagement. She's made like the wizard behind the curtain who actually makes this technology work, because you really don't want me to try to pull it off. It wouldn't have gone like this. So I really appreciate all you guys have done to come up with a creative way. It's one of those things that 2 years ago, I never would have imagined we'd be doing things this way. But, we adapt, we overcome, and I'm sure we'll have more challenges ahead of us, and I think we'll get it. We'll keep working together and sort it out. And I'd really encourage anyone has any thoughts for John about ways that the organization can bring value, holes we can step into, things we can help with. We need to be a member-driven organization. And please pipe up. If you think we're going the wrong way, let us know. If you got an idea, other ideas for things we can do with some of the roundtables, ways to engage members, let us know. We're all ears. We need the input. So
absolutely. Thanks.
Other than that, just thank you, everyone.
All right.
I think we may have actually ended 3 minutes ahead of schedule somehow.
Very good. Thank you all. Have a safe and great rest of your day.
Thank you. Have a nice day.